had 2 kids and we lost everything. I had to look at myself differently.
What I love about Danielle is she's not just a stay-at-home mom that is sort of behind the scenes. She's someone that's out there building a brand, creating impact, and she's a serial entrepreneur herself.
I was forced in this place where I'm like, maybe Garrett's not the provider. I'm not gonna sit and wait for him to save me, and I've gotta find a way to provide for myself. And so that's what I did. Because I loved my kids so much, if I was gonna take time away from them, I no longer looked at hair as being a hobby. I didn't necessarily know what I was gonna do, but I thought, you know what, I'm not just gonna give up on my marriage. Like, if he's willing to work on it, so am I.
You guys have made it so far. It's pretty amazing. So many relationships where there's money involved, the husband or whoever, they start building wealth. Most of those marriages fail. And you know, there's a lot of forces of nature you're working against, especially as success seems to come into the picture. It's something I've seen more than not, is the divorce that happens when success really starts to take off.
Society portrays that when you're a successful man that you can replace your wife. Women start to kind of get weird, and then they get like very resentful and all these things, and then the guy's like, yeah, I didn't want to replace you.
I think you're right. The second you start saying stuff like that all the time, you become not that attractive.
If you're that woman and you're having these insecurities, work on you. Work in the personal development, strengthen your mind, strengthen your body. Growth is sexy both on the male and female side of things.
All right, you guys, we're here on the road for Man on a Mission today with my friend Danielle White in her beautiful home here in Dana Point. I don't know if you guys have ever seen Danielle's content, or if you haven't, like, just try to look in the background, because like her home is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you for letting me do this here.
Yeah, no worries. I invited Eric on my podcast, and then I was like, hey, let's do a double up.
Yeah.
So it works out well.
We want to have her anyway, so we're going to do it here. But Danielle, listen, what I love about Danielle is she's not just a stay-at-home mom that is sort of behind the scenes. She's someone that's out there building a brand, creating impact, and she's a serial entrepreneur herself. She is a breadwinner, a bona fide breadwinner, but she happens to be married to someone who's a larger-than-life character. I'm going to interview him next. This is going to be a fun day today, so I hope you guys enjoy this conversation. But I think where I would like to start, Danielle, is first and foremost, there's so many girls out there right now in this country in particular, in America, and the statistics of, especially with young girls, are not that promising. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that I love about you is I think you're an incredible role model for young women. Mm-hmm. And you took on the amazing mother hat, and you also took on the entrepreneur hat. Do you think young girls today should really be looking at the foundation of what you build as probably something that they should do? Or do you think the traditional route is more a common road that they should be picking? Because a lot of these young girls are struggling.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because I was raised in a very religious upbringing. I was raised Mormon in Utah. And for me, the career wasn't a thing. It was like, get married young, have babies, the end, live happily ever after. And I always knew I wanted to be a mom. And I tell Garrett all the time, I'm like, when I met him, he's 7 years older than me, and I was like, oh, this guy's gonna take us to the top. He had that big personality, and I saw how much, back then we had no money, but I just saw who he was. And I was like,
he's going to do it.
He's going to do it. This is my guy. I'm going to have all his babies, and the end, And so for me, it wasn't until, I had 2 kids and we lost everything that I had to look at myself differently. And at the time, I was a hairstylist, but I did it more as a hobby. And so because I told myself, like, I almost had a lot of guilt in saying I had success in doing hair, because I almost took more pride in being like, well, I'm a mom. Like, I didn't want to be that person that's like career driven, even though I loved doing hair and I felt like I was naturally really good at it. But honestly, it wasn't until we lost everything and the skill that I had right in front of me was doing hair. And I mean, we were at a really low, dark time. Garrett and I didn't know if we were going to stay married. I mean, we were kind of like very young, but just kind of hit rock bottom.
Sure.
And so I had to look at myself as being that entrepreneur. It had gotten so bad where we were like selling furniture out of our house just to pay for food.
Oh my God.
We had tapped out like every single credit card, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Like,
did you blame Garrett?
Yeah, of course I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, you're my safety, you're my security, you're my provider. And I didn't blame him, but that's when the resentment started to build up. I'm like, here's this guy who I married to provide a life for me, and I have 2 kids with him now. And at the time, I mean, I had found out he'd had an emotional affair with another woman too. So I'm at this place where I'm feeling very vulnerable. I'm literally like, okay, I have 2 kids. My skill is doing hair. And I'm like, I was just scared. And so I never knew what I was going to create. And I had to break so many old stories. But it didn't happen overnight. I mean, you know that. It's like, you just have to be willing to be like, well, fuck it, here we go.
Sure.
And
wow.
So that's kind of how I started, is I literally it was back when nobody had brands.
Sure.
Like social media was barely alive. And I found YouTube and I was like, I think I'll just get on YouTube and talk about hair. And I had no idea where it was going to go. I just knew that I had to start.
Yeah.
And so that's what I did. I got on YouTube and I was like, okay, well, what am I going to talk about? And I started talking about hair. And just to rewind the story a little bit, I had always struggled with crappy hair, and I learned like every type of extension method you could think of, and then I created my own way of doing it, like mixing a bunch of stuff together. And so when I decided,
when you say crappy hair,
I have like the shittiest hair ever.
Is it light?
It's like toddler hair. Like imagine
you should talk to my wife because she complains about the same thing.
Oh,
I'm gonna introduce you.
It's the worst. Like I just had crappy hair, and I was always like, I gotta find a solution to this,
Okay.
you know. So, anyways, I create this way of doing extensions. Nobody's doing extensions this way, and that's when I started my brand called Natural Beaded Row.
Right.
And because I'm like, well, I'm kind of already teaching people for free because I don't value myself.
So would you consider that style? Is that a brand? Is that your brand?
Yeah. So my brand is Natural Beaded Row hair extensions. I always say, like, have you heard of hand-tied hair?
Yeah, actually.
So nobody was using hand-tied hair. It was the lowest selling product in the marketplace when it came to extension hair.
Wow.
And I was the one that started using it, and I knew it was, my brain's like, I'm like, I got to make fucking money. So I'm thinking, how can I reposition this cheap hair to look like luxury? And so anyways, it's such a long story, but I started buying, like, when I would save up enough money, I'd buy like nice pieces of clothes and nice shoes and nice handbags, which I didn't know would create a little bit of an obsession later in life. But I started talking about hair while positioning like high-end products with my extensions. Sure. So now hand-tied hair, like they're like the biggest selling extensions in the marketplace. Right. But my specific brand is Natural Beaded Row. So I knew I always wanted to be a mom, but I was forced in this place, just to come back to your question, I was forced in this place where I'm like, maybe Garrett's not the provider. Yeah. And I'm not going to sit and wait for him to save me, and I've got to find a way to provide for myself. Because I was like, okay, say we get divorced. If I get remarried, I want to get remarried because I'm not going to marry for money necessarily, although safety and security is important to me. Yep. It was like, I want to marry because I love this man, and I wanted to find a way where I could provide for myself and my kids. And so that's what I did. It was like, I'm going to work on me. And simultaneously, Garrett's working on him, and he's starting to build his business. But honestly, like, he was kind of lost. He'll tell you. He was like in hippie meditation, trying to find himself mode. Because he was in mortgages and was in the market crash, and he had to let go, like, 50, 100 employees. Like, I mean, we just went from being like making great money in our in our late 20s to having like nothing. So he's kind of finding his own way, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to help provide for the family and produce and figure it out a way on my own. Yeah. And through all of this, I have my 2 kids, so I'm kind of forced into like figuring out how to make money, but also because I loved my kids so much, if I was going to take time away from them, I no longer looked at hair as being a hobby. I very much went into more of my masculine side and had to start thinking
There's a business.
Yes. I'm like, okay, this is...
Be a boss.
Yeah. I was like, I've got to figure out, this is like, do I feed my kids this month? Can we pay our bills? Sure. So you look at your skills in front of you a lot differently when that's your story. Right. So I just kind of started like thinking like, okay, well, how can I make the most money? And it was this idea of starting a brand. And so that's kind of where it all started. But being a mom was still very important to me. Well,
I love how we started this because I gave a lot of insight to how you got to where you're at, why you're at, why you're at the way you're at. And I think you spoke to 2 different types of people right there. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of value in this conversation, I think, first and foremost. And there's going to be a lot of lessons here. So when people look at you and Garrett right now, you guys have all this. That story right there told the truth about like sort of the foundation of where it all started. What kept you around and from leaving Garrett?
I was scared. I didn't believe in myself.
Wow.
I was literally...
It's pretty honest.
I was 9 months pregnant when he told me he had like an emotional affair with another woman. He was like dating somebody he was coaching. I was like, cool.
It's terrible.
And... I mean, obviously now we're in a great space, but that was like, at this point, we were kind of like losing everything. Yeah. And then he tells me this, and I just remember feeling very numb. like just numb. Like he told me, and it was weird because I didn't care. I was just like, well, I don't like you anyway.
Did you expect it in a sense?
I think I was at this place where I was like, well, I'm having your kids, so like, what do I do? And
very honest.
I tell women, I'm like, don't stay in a marriage for kids, but like, you can't say that unless you're in her shoes.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, feeling like just trapped, and I didn't necessarily know what I was going to do, but I thought, you know what, I'm not just going to give up on my marriage. Like, if he's willing to work on it, so am I.
And he was ready to fight?
Yeah, he was. We were both like, do we want to let this go? But if I hadn't been pregnant, I might have. I'd been like, I don't need you. See you later. Like, especially if we're losing everything. But my second daughter, like, she was such a blessing that actually kept our marriage together.
Yeah.
Because we did. We stayed in the marriage because I had a brand new baby. But because we decided to stay in the marriage, I was like, well, I'm going to work on the marriage. I'm not just going to stay in the marriage because I have to. This guy wasn't even producing at the time. Right. So I'm like, that's when we actually started doing weekly date nights. And that's what birthed our podcast, Date Your Wife, because we weren't even dating anymore. Like, we'd had 2 kids and working and doing all the things. Like, we didn't want to spend the money on a date because we were like, why would we do that? So when we had no money, ironically, that's when we decided to start dating again. And it just started with making the decision to put time into each other, because I think couples get so disconnected and you don't even notice it's happening until like you lose the money, the safety and security, and then it like really is an eye-opener of where you're at in your relationship.
Sure.
So for me, that's what it was, because like we were married really young. I had like a Range Rover, a car, like a nice house, all these things, and then when all that was gone, I was like, oh, we're not actually connected at all.
Wow.
So it took us both being willing to stay in the fight.
Well, I'm glad you did.
I mean, we had 2 more babies. We went on and had 2 more babies.
That's what I'm saying.
It was a rough like 5 to 7 years.
Yeah. You and Garrett are really transparent. That's what I love about you. And you can, through your stories and even like, if you can go back far enough, I still even think you can see the evolution in both of you guys. And that's what's really cool is like, you're really transparent. You built this incredible life off of that transparency. I think was a huge sort of draw, especially in Garrett's business, but even in yours. Yeah. There's a lot of lessons here, but you guys fought it out. And so many people look at the book cover and they have no idea like how much fight happened. Yeah. So I love that you unpegged that right there. But a lot of relationships right now are in the same boat, or they're about to be. There's about to be a bomb drop in a relationship. And you see this all the time. Some stick together, some don't. But in most cases, I wonder if fighting for it is the answer, or if you're being in your situation, maybe without being pregnant. Yeah. Do people give up too easy in relationships?
I think so. I mean,
you're a living proof.
I really think that people think marriage happens naturally and easy. And we've worked with so many therapists over the year that I'm like, he's like, that's almost laughable. That's like saying business is just naturally going to happen and $1 million is going to drop on your front porch. Right. And I think that people don't put the same, they think that that's natural when it can be, that chemistry and connection is natural, but marriages still work. And sometimes it's great and sometimes it's ugly. Sure. But even think about in business, to get to where you're at, you got to go through some ugly shit. Right. You have to do that. And when the person you come out on that other side, you're like, holy shit, I'm glad but people are unwilling to do that in marriage because they have this fantasy that it should just happen natural and easy. Right. And so they give up thinking the grass is going to be greener on the other side. And I'm like, what if you did that with your business? You would never be a successful business. So it's like flipping that script, especially for like a lot of entrepreneurs who they get so sucked into work and they're like, I'm unwilling to be crappy in this area, so I'll just divorce and start over again. That's a great point. And it's just this loop, and it's not rewarding.
I was going to ask you, literally one of my questions on here is should you treat your relationship like a business?
I think you should at some level. Obviously.
No, I get it.
You're right. I was like, Garrett, if you put that much time into me, like that'd be too much. Like, cause he's like workaholic, right? But you do have to have date nights. You do have to have conversations and connection. One of the things for Garrett and I too, like if I noticed like in the past when I would feel disconnected, it was almost like, well, screw you, no, screw you. And then this weird resentment builds and you just keep pushing further and further away. Now, if I feel disconnected or I'm irritated or whatever, to me, it's like, oh, time to work on the marriage again. Yeah. Oh, time to have a tough conversation again. Right. And I think that what happens is people get so drifted, then they go from being drifted to being resentful, from resentful to being numb. And then they're like, I'm not even attracted to you anymore. But if you stay connected, you're always, not always, but like when I'm connected with Garrett, he physically looks hotter to me. I'm like, oh, it's because we're connected.
Yeah.
So for me, I have to remind myself, like, you're not always going to be on fire in marriage, but you have to let those simple signs of being like, hey, you're a little bit drifted, and you have to kind of cross and meet each other's needs. Like me and Garrett are so different. And so things that he wants that are like his love languages, I have to make a conscious effort to do, and vice versa.
Sure.
Because it's not natural for me.
What's your love language? Is it quality time?
Mine's probably quality time.
Or do I got to do the dishes? You know what I'm saying?
I don't even care if he does the dishes. Like, I like literally am that person. I'm like, you don't have to talk to me. Just like sit by me.
Just be near you.
Yeah, just be near me. Like but I do love having like important conversations too. So like I can't just like sit on the TV and watch Netflix every night. Like I love like lunch dates or even dinner dates where we just sit and talk for like 2 hours. Like that's important to me.
So much of what I do on the show is we really get into like mission and really getting to purpose. But it's what I love about this is such a real conversation because it really takes you inside the world of someone that is incredibly mission driven. You and Garrett both are, but I mean, Garrett's sort of pinnacle of this whole thing. He was one of the OGs in the space, but isn't that kind of weird to hear someone like me say that to you, that your husband's kind of like an OG? I told him that.
I'm like, we're like the godfathers in our industries
kind of
now.
Are. Well, you know, the right people know Garrett, and and that's really important. You know what I mean? And Garrett's not an easy guy to get to. You got to earn it, and there's no fluff in him. But I love that you kind of put sort of the sunlight on the reality that he wasn't born this way. Like he had to build this, and your marriage, it wasn't just gifted to you. You had to build it. And this home, just like this, started as a heap of dirt. You had to build it. And people think that it's going to be effortless along the way. And I think for anyone that's ever done anything worthwhile, nothing's easy. But why do we expect relationships to be so easy? And they're not. And so if you're not willing to work, you're probably going to go from relationship to relationship to relationship. And I think in a world now, Danielle, kind of getting to the psychology of like the trajectory of where this country is headed is so many young girls today, it just seems different to me. I don't know about you if you want to speak to that, but it seems so different than it was when I was a kid or you when you were a kid. Yeah,
it's funny because I mean, I have teenage daughters, right?
I know.
And they're very much like, I don't need a man. And I'm like, oh my God, like that drives me crazy. I'm like, but don't you want a man? You know, so there's this new where I like, for me, I'm like, you can still maintain your femininity. Like you can, like young women today, I'm like, hey, be a boss, but be a wife. Those are two totally different roles. Sure. And I experienced that the hard way. I built my businesses and was the boss.
Did you bring the masculine home sometimes?
100%. Yeah. And my husband,
doesn't work.
He'd be like, you're a nagging bitch. And I was like, what are you talking about? I didn't see, because naturally I feel very feminine. But when I had to tap into that alpha space to build my business, I came home and I can very much relate to men who say like, oh, I'm in business mode all day and then I'm expected to come home and turn into Disneyland dad and be happy and listen to my wife's need, but I've been fighting war all day. And I feel like at some level, like I experienced that. And so I had to make a conscious effort to switch roles. So if I were to give, women advice, go after your dreams and your passions and all these things. But understand, like having a relationship with a man is something that you want. And it's something where it's like, I love tapping into my feminine. Like, to me, it's very powerful. I actually lost a little bit of my power when I came home with my masculine. So now when I switch gears and I'm more into this like feminine side.
Sure, I get it.
It like Garrett like melts. You know what I mean?
Well,
He's just, like,
it's funny you just use that word. I was going to give some advice alongside your opinion of this piece, but like even with my wife, she has so much power when she's in her feminine because I literally like it's so easy to control me like a remote. But if she starts being, in her masculine, like if that's there, like it's just so off-putting, and like you're not gonna get a budge out of me. Yeah. Like I'm just gonna want to walk away because that's how I'm built. But when she's not, if you're really gonna say like I worked all day today and you say it's something, I'm gonna make something dumb up. You want me to mow the lawn? Okay, we have a person for that. You want me to mow it, but if I have to mow the lawn, like what is the best way to do it? Being in her feminine, and I literally will mow the lawn, and I will look at her, and I'll say, "You see this?" But if she comes at me the wrong way, and the point is, there's a lesson here, is that I think women, especially in relationships, that it maybe fail, and men too. This is a two-sided conversation, but there's so much that's easy to do that could keep it going. It can bring it right back to sort of a healthy place if you just understand the psychology of men, and men got to understand the psychology of women also. But at the end of the day, that the masculine thing's being so pushed by society, almost like the institutions of the world just seem to be hammering this. And now we're in this, I think, this place where just social media and everything, I feel like everywhere I go and everywhere I look, I see something with females that makes me just sad. It makes me sort of cringe. These young, beautiful girls that have their whole life in front of them. It's almost like they're making deals with the devil on a constant basis.
I feel like tapping into your feminine is actually a superpower.
Yep.
Like, I really do believe that you were meant to almost like soften the men a little bit.
Yeah, it's balance.
It really is. And I used to not look at it that way.
Right.
It was more of like, for me, I was like, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be that way. And then I was like, oh, this is actually very powerful. And I like this. So it's interesting. I think, if anything, like even with my daughters, I'm like, you can get what you want. You just have to be careful about how you approach,
Sure.
dad or whatever it is. And I'm still working on it. I mean, there's some days where I come home and I just want to start like venting and bitching and this and that. And it's like, I kind of have to like take a minute to just be like, okay, like get into that space. And one of the things that I do a lot with Garrett is like when he comes home from work, I literally, before he says anything, like, and he's like, this works so well, I just like grab his face and give him a big kiss. And he's like, you can see him like
changes.
Yeah. I'm like, well, that was easy, So it's something that I'm still working on, but it is something that I find is very powerful, and that young women, like they use the word, I don't want to be submissive. Yeah. And I'm like, it's not submissive. It's a superpower. Right. Like you're not being submissive. Agree. Like you're just tapping into your husband's needs.
Yeah. One thing I'll speak to that. If Jeanette, my wife, if she puts her hand on my shoulder when I'm stressed out, if I'm battling something, if I'm overwhelmed with something, it's not like that's not emotion doesn't happen. If she just touches my shoulder, I can feel my heart rate drop. But if she doesn't like the energy I'm putting out and she tries to match it with some other energy, it makes it really challenging. It makes it actually worse in me. Yeah. And again, like sometimes I can come in frazzled and she may not like my energy, but the second she recognized that she could help me in seconds, she just took the power. Yeah. And she, not only did she do that, she helped me, but she became valuable by saying not one word. I think it's just powerful. All this is really good. I love these relationship conversations because in the end of the day, you're right. Like people put so much energy in their business, but then their marriage is failing at home. Right. And how many couples do you see that look happy on the surface and that are, behind the scenes, that's really toxic? Yeah. What do toxic relationships look like?
Well, so I'll just share like a little story because it was like 2 years ago, and how we were doing our podcast, and you're like, I hit all these check boxes and all these things, and I thought everything was perfect. Yep. Like I was in this place that was a little bit toxic for me inside my relationship even 2 years ago. And how that happened for me was I had just had my fourth daughter, and I started getting into bikini competitions because my companies were kind of running themselves, and I was like, oh, I need more purpose because I don't have enough going on. But I also was like, I gained a ton of weight with my third daughter, and I was like, everyone was like, oh, settle, you're fine, you don't need to work on your body. And I was like, screw you, I'm going to go do bikini competitions. So anyways, I start doing those, and I'm really heavily focused in those, and I'm trying to be the best wife, and I'm making dinner every night, and I'm like thinking like we've moved into this house, we have all these cars and all these things, and I'm like, we have fucking done it. Like I'm like, hit all the check boxes. And at this time, I was lying to myself because I felt very disconnected with Garrett. And I'm thinking, how did this happen? Like, because we had our 2 kids, had our rough patch, then had 2 more, and it was almost like we got sucked into the fast lifestyle. And although we were still like doing the date nights, I don't think I was being honest with myself in my communication with Garrett. So I wasn't telling him that at some level I was sedating with fitness. I wasn't telling him that I needed more of his time. I was like, oh no, he's trying to build warrior, and I can't burden him, and I can't bother him, and I can't share my truth of like, I need more time with him because I saw how stressed he was. So how dare I ask for more? So I just like kept sedating until I got to this point where I'm like, I'm so disconnected from you right now that I am willing to risk everything. And I had to have these really tough conversations with Garrett because I realized I wasn't being honest, that what my needs were not being met. I was taking care of everybody else and looking like picture perfect, and yet I felt a piece of me was dying. Like my needs were not being met. And so I had this conversation with Garrett, and it actually didn't end real good. It ended in like lots of fights because he's like, what are you talking about?
I built
Garrett
all this.
White.
Do you not see your life?
Yeah, literally. And
that's
I was
a thing,
like,
right?
And I was like, it's not that I'm not grateful for this. It's just I need more. And to tell a powerful man that you need more, he was like, he was like, are you nuts? I was like, I guess I am. But I think that a lot of women, they don't share their truth because they're taught like so much of like taking care of other people, and they're taught like, don't burden the man, don't bug him. But what happens is then you have resentment and disconnection happen again.
Yeah.
And so I did a post on that actually talking about that today. I'm like, you think you're risking your safety and security by not having these conversations, only to realize you're risking your safety and security by not having these tough conversations with your spouse. So for me, like, I don't feel like there's, like in my relationship, there's not like a lot of like toxicity, but there was this place where I think there's a lot of honesty that you have to have with your partner to continue to grow and fight and get to the next level and even side of your relationship.
Yeah, it's good. I could attest to that too. And from a male's perspective, like alongside what you just said, if I think something's wrong, you just cause a whole thing that I now got to go fix something.
Yeah.
And guys, and a lot of guys, especially guys that are just like they're built this way inside their business. There's a problem, we fix it.
Yeah.
Sometimes women just want to be heard.
Yeah.
And they just need to like be seen, or like you don't need to go solve everything. And that's a hard thing for me to try to differentiate myself. I know for a lot of men, that's a big issue, especially men that like win in business, win in life. If there's a sense that there's a problem, I'm going to go fix it.
Yeah.
But that oftentimes leads to more arguing.
Right.
So if a woman comes to a man with a problem, what is the best way he should handle that in that moment?
Well, I've had to be better at teeing it off, meaning like I'll come to Garrett and I'll be like, okay, I don't need you to solve anything. I've literally,
so you say you frame it.
I frame it. I'm like, I do
That's
not
big.
need you to solve anything. And even then I'll catch him being like,
Yeah.
no.
Yep.
And
What's wrong?
Yeah. And I'm like, I just need to. And he's like, and then he'll even say, so you don't want, I'm like, I don't want any advice. Yeah.
Okay. Also no advice either, because then there's advice and there's like, I'll fix it for you.
No, guys' advice is always trying to fix it. And you're like,
Yeah,
no,
right.
I told you. No, just like listen. And there's been so much value. Garrett's like gotten actually a lot better at this, because one of the conversations I had with him at the beginning of the year is I'm like, stop fixing things and work on your reactivity. I was like, that is so important for me, because I'm like, when you're reactive, I shut down. I was like, so if you can work on your reactivity and just listen.
You listen to this, guys?
Yeah.
It's right here.
Like literally,
all of us.
One of the things that Garrett's done recently, because he knows how important it's been for me, is he'll come home and we'll literally like put the kids on their iPads. We don't do that a lot, but if we don't have help or whatever, I'm like, put the kids on the iPad. We'll go upstairs. We'll sit for 10 minutes. And he literally is like, tell me about your day. Tell me about your day. And I love it. I'm like, I notice he's making a conscious effort to do that. And I'll be like, even if I didn't even do anything, I'm like, well, I went to the mall and I picked up the girls' new shoes, but I love that he's taking interest in what I did. And I think the thing is for men is they're literally out there like fighting these huge wars, fighting people left and right. And I'm like, I went to Chick-fil-A and Nordstrom's. So women feel like, oh, I don't want to tell him that. Like it wasn't as significant as what he did. And so we're like, why would he want to hear? So men, if you're listening to this.
This is so good.
Men, they will feel seen and heard if you literally like, how was your day? You shut the iPads off, everything, you're not like on your phone, and you look them in the eyes and you're like, oh my God, that's so funny, tell me more, and take this inquisitive attitude about Chick-fil-A and Nordstrom's.
Yeah. Sure.
It sounds so stupid, but I'm like, oh, thanks, babe.
I'll give a trick that's been like really useful for me these last few years, and I bring death into it. And again, just like I'm always thinking about our listeners here, especially if you're struggling in your marriage, and it's shocking how often I hear this, even in my coaching communities, you hear this a lot, that it's not going, especially when one person start working on themselves and the other person's not on board. Yeah. A huge rift starts to happen. And I hear this, I hear this probably more than anything else, if you want to know the truth. But for men out there, especially, if I look at my wife and I say, what if she died today? And like, it seems morbid, or even put a stronger thought to it. She's going to die today. Like just the intensity of sort of that moment, what it does is it reframes this moment. It makes me look at her differently. I can give her a hug and it's different. Yeah. The energy and the wavelength that flows out of my body that you don't think is sensed, it's a real emotion that another woman can definitely feel. Your wife then gets to absorb that, and it just allows you to be so much more present and purposeful with everything. And for me, I stumbled upon this on accident when my grandma died. We talked about it. Yeah. But it has been one of the greatest gifts for that problem that you just identified that used to be huge for me. Was the second there's something, I try to overwhelm the thing, because I want to be the fighter for my I don't, and that would always frustrate her more, and I didn't understand what we're going wrong here. Yeah. But this is very good. And at the core of it all, do you think, Danielle, this is probably the simplest reason that the majority of relationships go wrong is they just can't communicate correctly? Absolutely.
Like think about, even Garrett and I, it's like, I hate when you have like reoccurring fights. And they're like, why?
Didn't we have that? Yeah.
Like, I'm like, why are we still arguing about this? You know? And it's like, what's the deeper like root of this argument, right? And it does. It comes down to communication. But even inside of communication, it's like, you're not communicating to win. Like, we're so defensive in our ego about like, I'm right and you should understand me. And I'm like, but what if I took this effort to understand you and I didn't expect you to understand me?
Right.
And it's been a lot of work for Garrett and I. One of the things we kind of on and off, but like we do couples therapy. We're doing it weekly. We did it for like 6 months every week on a Zoom call, like a 2-hour therapy meeting. And that actually really helped us get through a lot of sticky conversations, because those conversations that go nowhere, a therapist is almost like a sounding board where it's like, here's what she's saying, here's what he's saying. And I was like, oh my God. So we were able to like get past these stupid conversations that we were having. And now what was really cool about that is when we're in an ugly space, we stay in that ugly space so much shorter, because we're like, this is dumb. Why are we arguing about this? So it really helped like dissolve the ego just a little bit to where we're like, this is a stupid fight.
Yeah.
Like, what do we want out of this right now?
Sure.
Well, the reality is I just had a day at work and I just had toddlers running all over me. And this argument is just a result of a day with all my kids, you know? I'm like, it's not even about you. You triggered me and now we're bringing up this old argument. So one of the things when it comes to communication is if you have those triggers come up, it's almost like validate that you're human. I think that people get so stuck in triggers and I'm like, you're human. Yeah. It's going to happen. And a lot of things for Garrett and I is we get triggered on like 10 years ago, Garrett. And I have to remind him, I'm like, you're not 10 years ago, Garrett, let it go. So that's been like something that's been like beneficial for me, is not letting your triggers completely destroy you.
Right.
And then having those conversations where, like just having those important conversations and communication, because you can tell when you're disconnected with like your significant other. You can just feel it. Like energy. You walk into a room and you're just like, why am I so annoyed by you? You know? Yeah. So I like to be in this, and I can even tell to this day, like we just got back from a 10-day trip in Greece and we're both like, oh, we're all in like the lovey-dovey phase because we just spent 10 days together, you know? But then I have to remind myself like, okay, we gotta like, we have kids, we had a lot of life going on, but we have to take those moments to have conversations and connect and communicate.
Yeah. That trip looked beautiful, by the way.
Oh, it was fun, yeah.
One thing that I think is common that you brought up in me is that I think a lot of men, and maybe you could speak to this, they have amnesia. Like we can forget things really quick, and it's like the fight didn't happen because I've already forgot that we had it. Yeah. But a woman, I think historically, just in her nature, they hang on to it much longer. And a guy can literally, like, ignorance is bliss. Like we're so far past it, and then 3 days later, like you're still thing that you're chewing on. We don't see it. Yeah. And then it turns into a fight later, and it's like, and then you finally find out what she's been hanging on to, and it's that you didn't resolve that thing right that you think you resolved a long time ago. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if that is a common thing to you can speak to, but all this stuff is going to be valuable for people that are struggling. I would say if you're a woman, for me, what I found is like little things would bug me and I would tuck it under the rug. There you go. And then he would say something and it would be like a blow up and he's like, I just forgot to take the garbage out. Yeah, like, but it's not about that, you know? And I realized I'm like, oh, because I'm not sharing my truth. So it could be something of like, hey, I didn't like your tone, or hey, like the way you handled this with Bailey, it's like really bugging me. So, and sometimes it ends up in a little bit of a fight, but if I keep my feelings inside, it's almost like I'm in my own prison. So for me, dealing with Garrett, who's a very reactive man, I'm like, ooh, is this going to risk like ruffling the feathers? Is this going to create a fight? And I'm like, it might, or it might just create a very powerful conversation. But women hold in their feelings because they don't want to start a fight. They hold in something that bugs them because they value their safety and security. They're like, I don't want to ruffle the boat. I don't want to ruffle his feathers. Like, so for me, and if I could speak to any even woman out there, like if there's something that bugs you, you will just build up resentment and he will feel it anyways. So if there's something that you're like, that really hurt my feelings or whatever it is, it's best to communicate it rather than stick it under the rug, because that's what creates marriages to all of a sudden like have this friction. Sure. So it's been a learned behavior for me because I naturally am that person that's like, again, I'm like, I'm the people pleaser and I don't want to rock the boat and I don't want to have a fight. And then I realized inside my soul was dying. And I was like, well, that doesn't get me what I want. So I've had to be better about having those tough conversations at times. Yeah. What do you think is the number one insecurity women feel inside inside their marriage. The reason I asked this is because you said something that that kind of triggered that thought in me, and it's something I've heard a lot of women say, is that they feel safe. And when a woman's not feeling safe in her relationship, she turns into something terrible, and that can create just further divide because she's harboring sort of like, it's a feeling. She may not even know what it is or why she doesn't feel safe, but how important is it for a man to be able to spot that, be able to speak to what that even means?
Yeah, so it's so funny because I think we hear of safety and security as just money, right? But safety is also like your woman wants to feel safe to share her truths with you. And if you're that man that's constantly that reactive man, or you're always trying to solve her problems, she's going to close down and she doesn't feel safe to now share her truths.
Right.
So it's so weird when you kind of like see it all unfold in the big picture. The guy's like, well, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm providing all this safety and security. And she's like, I don't feel safe because of your reactivity.
Yeah. And
now I can't speak to you because I'm too tired. I've been with the kids all day and I don't want to start a fight.
What if a guy is being shady and she's sensing something that's just amiss, and it's creating her to sort of feel unsafe and insecure in her relationship? Is that, I mean, I guarantee that is a massive problem in America where someone spots something and it could go both ways.
Right.
But you know, that sort of like that feeling that you have in your gut that something's not right, and that you start feeling insecure. And, you know, how should women respond to that?
I would say when I'm feeling that way, because everybody's minds goes down that rabbit hole.
Worst case?
Yeah, like if Garrett's like at a late meeting and we're disconnected, I'm like, who's he with? Where'd he go? And I feel like I'm a very like secure person. I'm like, really? Did he get a date? And I'm like, no, that's not the reality. And for me, it's like a sign of like, it's not like something shady's going on. It's like, oh, we're kind of disconnected again because I trust this man. So I'm like, it's literally a lack of connection for me. And everybody's mind, like, I don't care, like I said, if you're disconnected, you assume the worst. So unless something like really is happening, but for me, I've not ever experienced that. I notice when I get in my head of like, what's he doing? Why is he working late? It's because I'm like, we're a little bit disconnected right now, and we need to like come back and connect.
Sure. You guys have made it so far. It's pretty amazing. So many relationships where there's money involved, and you know, the husband or whoever, but you know, they start building wealth. Most of those marriages fail.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a lot of forces in nature you're working against, especially as success needs to come into the picture. And even if you built it from nothing together, you know, it's something I've seen more than not is the divorce that sort of happens when success really starts to take off.
Yeah, I get it, and it's crazy because what happens for women when like we get older, we almost build our own insecurities by saying like, well, now I'm older and I have kids, and who's going to want me? So they sabotage their marriage. I'm like, your man thinks you're the sexiest woman alive.
Yeah, stop saying weird things.
Yeah, like he doesn't want the 28-year-old. He wants you, and now you're being weird about it.
Thank you for saying that.
So I think
not every guy's a dog.
Yeah, and so I think that women, like society portrays that when you're a successful man that you can replace your wife. And the women are the ones that maybe, I don't know always, but I think the women start to kind of get weird, and then they get like very resentful and all these things, and then the guy's like, yeah, I didn't want to replace you.
I'm glad you said this.
Kind of turned into a crazy bitch on me.
Yeah, I'm glad you said it because it's coming from a good place.
Yeah.
It's coming from a good heart, a big heart, I think oftentimes. But the truth is, I think you're right. The second you start saying stuff like that all the time, you become not that attractive.
Yeah.
But you were attractive when you just stay in your feminine. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? I don't want to have to redo this whole thing, you know, and over. But if you're going to sabotage this by every 2 seconds letting me know like how ugly you think you are or how old you think you are, but that is something that you're right, it happens a lot. And it's that insecurity sort of shining through. Yeah. How can a woman put herself in a position to not have that insecurity sort of shine through, even if it's natural for her to want it?
I think as a woman, I think it's very important to take care of yourself and take time for you. Like, I do fitness like for mental, but I like the way I feel. Like, I feel more certainty. I feel more confident, and I feel like Garrett sees that too, you know? So for me, I'm like, I'm just going to keep playing the best version of me, and not just like with my physical body, but I'm like, I'm going to keep expanding as a human, because that's how we're ultimately going to grow together. Yeah. And so for me, I'm like, I'm always working on myself, which means I know I'm a high-valued woman. Right. And when you feel like you're a high-valued woman, then you can be married to a high-valued man, and you both feel worthy of one another. If I stopped working on myself and say, for example, like Garrett's now into his bodybuilding and stuff and all this, I would be very intimidated. Right. I'm like, I have 4 kids. Who am I? Like, I'm not like, so my way is I'm going to keep working on myself. And that's, like I said, that's what really builds me as like a high valued woman.
Yep.
I'm like, I tell him all the time, I'm like, I'm lucky to have you and you're also lucky to have me.
Yeah.
And so I think
like
putting
that.
that frame on a marriage of like
100%.
work on you. If you're that woman and you're having these insecurities, I don't care if you're in the working field or you're not.
Right.
Work on you.
Right.
Work in the personal development, strengthen your mind.
Because that's sexy to a guy.
Exactly. Like,
it is.
Growth is sexy both on the male and female side
Cool.
of things. So when you see somebody growing, you naturally gravitate to that.
Yep.
When you see somebody's journey of growth, it's attractive.
Right.
And so I would say for all relationships, if you're starting to feel threatened, vice versa, like the guy's growing or the woman's growing, don't stay stuck in your box and work on yourself, because that's the only way that your marriage is actually going to work, is if you simultaneously work on yourselves, and then you can work on the marriage together.
Right. Yeah, and I'd add to that, if the husband is working on himself, you should definitely go all in.
Yeah.
And vice versa. If the wife's going all in on herself, you should go all in as the husband. But so often in some of these communities that we serve, you'll see one person going in, and that's where the rift starts.
Yeah.
Then the resentment really gets heavy. And you know what I mean? You guys got to do this together. Like I'll always be working on myself, but I expect Jeanette always be working on herself too. You know what I mean? So I think this is like incredible advice. You mentioned high value man. What would your definition of a high value man be?
For me, it's just somebody who works on all areas of their life, who like sees who they are and knows where they're going.
Yeah.
Like that's so sexy, whether you're a man or a woman. It's like you're just grounded in who you are.
Right.
And it's like, you're like, I'm going here and I hope you come with me.
Yeah, that's good. What traits do you admire most in a man?
I really respect men. Like I think there's so many traits, and I feel like I'm still trying to like be, like I said, like be in my feminine, but I respect men so much because the era or the phase I went through when I had to kind of grind and build. So my heart is very empathetic to men. So I think my favorite traits in men and ladies, please take this lightly.
Yeah.
They want to do good. They have big hearts. They want to go to war for their women.
Yeah.
And so many times they're just trying to navigate their own feelings and emotions, especially high-producing men, that's why they're so good in business. So I would say it's like just be patient and feel into that love. And I think that I've had to, again, kind of learn it the hard way, but I was like, they want to fight this battle. And instead of me being like, I'm always in a fight, it's almost like I respect that you want to fight this battle for my family. So I think that's one of the biggest things I love about men is that they're like, they'll kill for their family, their wife, their whatever. Like they'll go to war.
Sure. One thing I always promote in my coaching is how important it is to get the relationship right. And I'm big on like treat it like a business. Like if it'll work as a business, that's a really good sign. You got to really consider that. And if you're going to give like young advice to someone that is trying to figure out like who they want to, the type of guy they want to commit to, so often a girl will commit to a guy and everything seems right. Maybe there was red flags there. Maybe there even wasn't. But at the end of the day, it turns into a nightmare situation. It turns into a father or mother's worst nightmare when all of a sudden your 21-year-old, this is who she decided to marry. Or, and it ends really, really bad. So when you're that young and you're starting to look for qualities in a person that hasn't made it yet, obviously, but they have some of those early signs of someone that is going to be a valuable human, what should a young person look for that's a girl in a relationship?
Well, I'll just share like a little bit of my own story because it's like when I met Garrett, I was 18. I got married at 20.
Wow.
He was 27. And he was finishing up college, and I was in the same college as him. And anyways, he had no money at the time, And I remember he had a kid at the time, too. So he's been married before he had a son. I met him. I started dating him. I didn't know he had a kid at the time. And anyways, I bring this guy home, and my mom is like, you're dating a guy. You're 19. You're super cute. You're dating this guy who's older than you, that has a kid, that literally drove like the biggest piece of shit car ever.
Yeah,
and
good
I
point.
was like,
wow.
I was just like thinking like, because I saw how charismatic he was and like how he held himself and how he was such a hard worker. And I was like, I have no doubts. I like saw who I knew he could become.
Sure.
So I think what happens for women is if they don't become this man, then they are like, well, screw you. But I think women have to help build their man to who they saw, if that makes sense.
It does.
So this person that I saw at 18 years old, I helped him develop it. I helped push him. I always say, like, women have standards of where they want their men to rise, and that's not a problem. I think it actually pushes men to want to rise to that standard.
Sure.
So for me, it was like, if you're in this situation and you, like, see who this man can become, help build him.
That's good.
Like,
that's good
help
advice.
build him. When Garrett and I lost everything, I could have left and been like, well, you're not the guy I saw. but I stayed in the fight. And like, again, we kind of worked on each other, but like I helped extract out of him his greatness. And he did the same with me. Like Garrett, he'll tell me all the time, he's like, I think I would have just gone on to be like a pro high school football coach because he's in football. And he's like, I don't think I didn't dream big enough. I didn't dream this house. And I was like, I knew this was you. He had his dreams way lower and I had to push him to his bigger dreams. And he did the same with me. So I was like, I just want to be a stay-at-home mom and I'm just going to play, just be comfortable in my little box and my culture and my religion. And Garrett's like, oh, no, you're not. You're going here because he saw me for who I am. So I think it's so important in a relationship when you find that person and when you see who they are, help extract their greatness.
I love that. I asked Jeanette, I was like, what'd you see in me? Because I was like an ex-felon that was coming off of, facing 25 to life. And she knew all that. She was like the one person that did know because she dated the guy that tried to take me down. Yeah. But one thing she said, she goes, you had two things. She goes, you were really funny. She goes, you're just easy to be around. But she goes, I knew you were going to do well in life. She's like, there's no way you weren't going to. Yeah. I was like, you saw that? I was a piece of shit. Yeah. She goes, no, it was clear as day. Yeah. Like you were going to do fine. Right. Long as you, but she goes, I liked your lightheartedness around me. And so it's neat that you saw that too. And you did good but it didn't mean you didn't get through all the work and, kind of same here. But what's one thing that you would say is like your mission right now? Like looking at like the landscape of where you're at, everything that is going on in your life?
I do believe that if you don't have a purpose, your soul kind of starts to slowly die. So for me, my mission in the beginning when I was building my brands was like, I'm going to transform the hair industry. I want to, I'm a hairstylist that built an 8-figure brand. And I'm like, I started as like literally just a hairstylist. And I have like hairlines and all these things. And I'm like, okay, like that's where I started. And that was my mission then because I saw like how many shifts I had to make to become the woman I am today in the hair industry. And so now like that was my purpose and my calling. But now it's like, I was like, oh, I have my purpose and my calling. I'm good. I have my mission. And then just recently it was like, God's like, oh no, that was just the start of your mission. And I'm like, oh, I was like, okay. So for me right now, I don't know my mission more than I feel like I've been called. And I think so many people are like looking for their mission or their purpose. And I'm like, I don't really know other than I just have this kind of like intuition of like, you're ready to keep expanding. Cause I literally felt like my businesses were running and I felt like my soul was dying a little bit. And I was like, we talking about God, I've got my purpose. I'm training hairstylists. And it was like, that's where you started. Yeah. And so for me now my mission is like, I don't know who I'm going to become and who I'm going to impact, but I know that this life is about serving. With everything we have, with the money's in the car, the money in cars and all this stuff, I know that life is more about impact and reach. Sure. And I know that everybody is designed to choose that calling. So my mission is I'm like, okay, I'm going to expand my personal brand. I literally have no idea where it's going to go other than I'm like, okay, we're doing another podcast. Okay, we're going to meet this person. We're going to meet this person. And I have no doubt that you start down this path and so many doors start to open up because of your ability to say yes. And even though it's like uncomfortable for me because I was like the queen in the hair world. And now I'm like, oh, I got to jump into this whole nother space of big entrepreneurs and people and all this thing. It's scary for me. And I have all this success. Why would I choose to create a new mission, to create a new purpose? Right. Because my purpose is bigger. And so that's kind of where I'm at right now is just, again, like I'm starting with podcasting. I just started writing my first book. And I think my mission is I'm just sharing my story and it's going to evolve into who am I going to mentor, who am I going to help, who's going to come into my world. Right. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, in the end, it's like I know who I am, but I say this all the time, I know where I'm going. And I'm going back to Father. I'm going back to God. In order to do that, I have to keep saying yes to these opportunities because He's going to help grow me to the person I've always become. Yeah, that's beautiful. That was a good answer. How important is God in your relationship and in your business and in your mission, everything you do? Yeah, it's interesting because I was raised Mormon and I didn't actually have a relationship with God or the Spirit until actually I left the culture and in the community. And all of a sudden, I was really unfamiliar with, like, why am I feeling this way? Like, I feel so tapped in and so plugged in. And there was so many times in my life where, like, I could have quit and said no and no and no. And it was almost like God's like, no, I have bigger things in store for you. And I was like, here we go. And I used to be very scared and hesitant to bring up, God or Spirit. But that's really what has led me in so many areas of my life is just this voice comes down speaking directly to me. And He's like, I'm using you as a tool. Let's go. And so now I just share from my heart. I don't care if you call it God, Spirit, Christ, whatever you want to call it. But for me, it's more of just like staying in tune, staying tapped in, because I believe that God delivers messages through us. And so for me, it's very important to, like, even if I'm doing a podcast, I'm like, God, what do you want me to say? I try to really like plug into like, how can I serve? How can I help? What do you want me to say? So for me, I'm not one to read scriptures every morning. That's not me, that's Garrett. But I am very just plugged into like, what is my mission here?
Yeah, it's beautiful. I ask this on every podcast I do, just because it's just kind of turned into a tradition. But can you succeed at the highest levels without being obsessed?
No. I mean...
Never, not one person have ever, hundreds of people have asked it to, has ever said the opposite of that.
Yeah, I was like, at some level, you have to be that crazy person that can't turn it off.
Yeah.
And even if you want to turn it off, you're like, it's like you're calling. You're like, well, I guess I got to do this or I'm never going to be able to turn this off.
Yeah.
But there's moments, I will say, like, you have to have boundaries.
Sure.
You know, as a mom, like, there's times I'm like, I got to put my phone down.
Of course.
I can't be this obsessed right now. So I think the obsession is normal, but also creating healthy boundaries with your family.
Of course.
And that kind of thing is good.
I think especially early, though, that obsession, it's a prerequisite for breaking through and being good at something. Mm-hmm. And so one thing I help to promote, and I like to use the audience here that's listening in these conversations to sort of get in their heads with this topic, that if you haven't found that for you, then maybe like you should look around and say, like, am I happy with what I'm doing? Because most people are obsessed. They love what they do.
You know what? I'll share this.
I feel that out of you.
I'll share this really quick, though, because when I started doing hair, I wasn't obsessed at all.
Okay.
I was just...
So it turned into it?
Yes. So I started doing hair because I was in college and I was like, well, this is stupid. I'm a horrible test taker and this is not for me. Like, I was like... So I went to hair school because I'm thinking, like, I'll just get a trade, whatever.
Yeah.
And I was really bad at hair in the beginning and messed up a lot of hair. It was like scary for me. I'm like, oh, like, but I didn't charge a lot, so I didn't care. I was like, whatever, it's just for fun, it's a hobby. But it didn't become a passion or an obsession for me until I started to get good at it. And then it was like just looking at my art of doing hair, I got like obsessed with it.
That's
I'm
cool.
like, I want to be the best at doing hair. And then my obsession even went even further to like, okay, I figured out some things in business and running a salon and doing these things that now I want to like, now I'm obsessed with like changing people's mindset inside the hair industry. Right. But that's why I always say too, I'm like, people are always looking for their obsession, their purpose, their passion. And I'm like, but you're not looking what is right in front of you.
That's a good point.
And that can develop into an obsession.
That's how it was for me.
Yeah. I was like, even like, think about like, you shared the story of how you first got on stage and you were like nervous and you're like, oh, it's not for me. But now you probably are amazing on stage because you have the reps. And when you get good at something, you get obsessed. Yeah,
it's true. And the second it's your baby, you think it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So entrepreneurship is such a gift. And again, even a little side hustle or a little this or that, maybe it's not for everyone. You know, I think maybe you got to be a little crazy to really succeed. But at the end of the day, I think that is a powerful connection because there's I'm always aware of how many people are struggling. Mm-hmm. And like being able to sort of like spark something in them that it could be right in front of you, but you haven't gone all in on it yet. Like, I used to dream about furniture, how it would go together like Tetris on our floor where we had way too much furniture and not nearly enough floor space. And I would dream about it. Like, that's how you know you're there.
Yeah, because you got to that level of, you're dreaming.
But who would have thought furniture? Like, no, and it really wasn't that. It was the game of it all. Like, I was obsessed with the game of like, it's like the sky's the limit. What am I going to do with this? How am I going to like, there are all these power players everywhere. Like, how am I going to position myself? Like, that is that game that I became so obsessed with that is really cool. But I've yet to meet someone that I'm inspired by like you that doesn't bring a really powerful perspective alongside that question. So thank you.
Yeah, I mean, you do have to be obsessed, but don't be afraid if you're not obsessed in the beginning, I guess I should say.
No, it's good advice.
Put in the reps.
It's so good because that's the truth for everyone. Because not everyone is born like being a little kid that's going to like dream to play baseball and they go all the way to major leagues. That's only for a very few people where it follows through all the way since your childhood. But no, this has been great. Thank you for having me in your home.
Yeah, thanks. I was like, thanks for being here. Wait, this is your podcast.
No, isn't it cool? You guys are amazing. If I was going to send our audience to follow you, get connected with you, maybe work with you, where should we send them?
So I have Danielle K White. That's just my blog. But if you want information, that has all my hair brands and everything on there. Again, my hairline is called Natural Beaded Row. You can go to mbr.education to find out more information on that. And then I also own a salon in Laguna Beach called DKW Styling Salon. So if you're in Orange County and you're like, I need amazing hair, you can check out my salon. But that's it. Thanks for letting me do a shout out on your podcast.
No, I'm great for you. Thank you for having me in your home.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Appreciate you.
Dude, I have so much found out. Y'all tell you right now, nothing. I was telling Danielle, there's nothing I've ever done. I got this house, the cars, this money, big events, success, impact clients, case study, gorgeous wife, little dog.
Are you recording? Record.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I gotta have all those things, but like there's like nothing. There's nothing I've ever done that immediately demands alpha respect. Like men and women around the world, everywhere we travel, immediate respect,
Right.
which is physical body.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm going to introduce the show because on that note, we just interviewed Danielle, and now we're going to bring Garrett into this equation because so much we talked about was relationships. So welcome to this part of Man on a Mission. Garrett, thank you for being here, man. But
Got it.
you probably just caught him saying something. I think I'm going to edit this in for the listeners out there that this is out of everything he's done. You got to understand right now we're in a $30 million home in one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the world, and Garrett's talking about out of everything he's ever done, nothing has been as good as being this fit, feeling this good. How old are you?
48.
48. I don't know if the camera can tell or sort of justify the hand I just shook and the grip that I just had. But Garrett, you're rock solid, man.
Thank you.
There's a lot of intensity and a lot of discipline that goes into building a body like that. And so that's a massive commitment. Is that as big of commitment as your relationships, as building a business?
I would say it's actually, the body has been the last, it's like the final frontier for me. I would say it's the simplest and easiest for me because this has been the eternal mission. Like trying to dial this one in. So I think because body's been my last frontier, I was never a fat dude, so I never know what the fat guy feels like. But I know what just being I look back now, I just feel like I was a skinny surfer.
Yeah.
Just a lean, skinny surfer.
Sure.
So, but yes, it's this. I mean, that's the part that's weird about it, though is it's not complicated. Money's not complicated. Marriage is not complicated. Women are complicated, but they're not. Marriage is not complicated.
Okay.
Kids are not kids are complicated, but being a father is not complicated. And when you recognize that everything that we have, God has built us into a place of saying, it's simple. The challenge is human beings don't like simple. They want to create complexity over simplicity, so they have an excuse to not do.
Right. Wow.
That's it.
So do you wish you would have started putting the priority into health at earlier stage in life, or do you like you doing it right now at 48 in your relationship?
I think this is a different version of health, right? Yeah. So like I've been into my body like forever.
Okay.
I've just been doing different shit. So like I was like surfing for 5 years, hardcore, every day, lean, 188 pounds. I did ultra marathons for 4 years, running 100, 150, 185 mile races. I did Ironman for 4 years, competed in the World Championships in 2007. I did marathons for 3 years. I played collegiate football at Boise State. I played professional arena football. So I've been an athlete my whole life, but I'd never been a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. I'd never built my body this way.
Yeah, you remind me more of like a free safety in the NFL who could crush someone and light them up, but not get hurt.
Yeah,
bodybuilders look like they're going to get hurt if they go hit someone.
That's what you played as free safety?
I played strong safety, yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, that's it right there. I think you at 48 would have probably taken you out when you were.
For sure would have.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing is it's just different. So she's the one that got me into bodybuilding because I was like, whatever. Mm-hmm. And she had our third daughter and then got into bikini competitions.
Yeah. Amazing. Inspiration.
Such an inspiration. Yeah. I mean, it completely transformed her certainty in herself. She
Amazing.
was already a very confident woman.
Yeah,
but
and you're
now,
beautiful already, but this was it. Let me ask you, Danielle, so I'm leading this with somewhere, but I want to tee this up real quick. So how old were you when you went into the competition phase of your life?
Let's see, I was 37.
Yeah. Okay. So number one, like I just know you. I get a sense of you. You're a very, very humble person.
Thank you.
Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you're not a look at me type. Like, you're not. I just don't feel that. I don't read that off you. Did you start like getting any insecurities or any hate thrown at your way when all of a sudden you're doing this for you?
Yeah, but I didn't really care because people don't understand the process. So I feel like their hate was ignorant.
100%.
So, and the only reason I got into it was because after my third daughter and gaining almost 65 pounds, I developed a DVT in my leg, and it made me like think about life a little bit differently.
For sure.
And so after I had her, I was like, what do I got to lose? Fuck it. I'll get on stage in a bikini and see where it goes. So I don't know. I feel like I started the bodybuilding thing like a little bit later, but it was because I was like, why not?
Yeah,
like,
you killed it.
Yeah, I was like, why not?
Yeah, I think so many people, get scared to do that kind of stuff because you put yourself out there and it's so scary. But that's what triggered you to get into the bodybuilding.
Yeah. Well, she Danielle's been on a rise with podcasting, with bikini competitions. Like, for a woman to get on, it was stressful as a guy to get on stage and compete. As a woman to get on stage and compete, who's had 4 children, who is in her late 30s. Like, this was like, to me, it was the most mesmerizing thing ever, because it unlocked her in the bedroom, it unlocked her on the boardroom, it unlocked her on stage, it unlocked her as a mom, like her own certainty, it just blew up.
And it's all in extreme. It's not like dabbling with it.
Yeah.
You're committing to a date on a calendar,
Yeah.
and that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
Where I think I'm leading for this is sort of the psychology of, you guys have such a killer relationship, and it's apparent. You guys are very transparent with the world. There's a lot of people that watch you and listen to you, and I was telling your wife, how cool is it to be like kind of the OG in a space? That's kind of how you're framed in the world. Yeah. But it's your relationship that I think that really separates you. Your connection with God and how you speak to people. But relationships are a huge part of it. With sort of the I don't know if you want to call it obsession, or sort of that really intense goal setting at this pace in your career, is this one of the secrets to marriage, to be able to like really each have a common goal that is extreme in a sense, and to put it on the table and to just go for it with vengeance?
What do you think?
To both have like a goal
like that.
Listen, we're both growth mindset. I don't think that you can. I don't think if she was a sit around and just hang out, or I was a sit around and hang out, it wouldn't work.
None of it.
Because there's a push pull that happens with us, which is she'll do something, and then I'm like, and then I'll decide to finally do it, and then I'll push past her in something, which then triggers her to be like, what? Yeah. So if you were to measure, like if you could vibrationally measure our marriage, it's like we're two vibrational currencies, and there's seasons where Danielle is higher than me vibrationally, and she is pulling me saying, what the are you doing? Can we go, please? This is it. Father is calling us home. We're supposed to be at level 37 right now. You are still around at 34. I can't do this anymore. And then we'll switch where I'll be up higher, she'll be lower, and I'll be like, what are you doing? Can we go?
Yeah.
And then there's these moments where we're in harmony, where we're both like crossing each other at the same frequency, and that's when it's just supernova.
I think it's a good cycle right there. Yeah. You ever feel like this, like you're building something, you're in that building phase, you're climbing up the mountain, and you get to ski down it a little bit. And as long as we're both climbing, it doesn't have to do its perfect spot. We can ski down a little, but let's not ski for too long, because we got to climb that next mountain. Yes. It's always how I viewed success, is like I get to work my ass off, breakout year, and I can coast for a minute and enjoy what I just did, and then it's on to the next. But to do that in a marriage, to kind of look at it through that perspective, that we're both always working on something, and then we're going to have the coast time for a minute and back on it. That is cool, though, to see you both sort of competing and putting your body as a number one at this point in your career. So you said it affected every part of your marriage when you both went all in on this?
Well, it was her certainty.
I think
it's
herself. Like it chips away a little bit of like the ego. You're just like, okay, because I think a lot of times, especially with like a fitness goal, I'll say that most people get to this place where they're like, good enough. For me, having that goal is like, you're not going to step on stage saying good enough. You're going to step on stage say, I gave it my all. Everything. Yeah. So for me, when I got to that place, I was like, how many other areas am I playing good enough? And is there a next level to great? So that's what really like, it just made me like look at things like a lot differently. And it helped with my overall certainty and confidence and things like that. But it was just, I don't know, I felt like this version of me that was always in there just kind of like came out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was like, oh, there she is, you know, because I was like, I'm a little bit more on the quiet, introverted side, but I'm like, I got to get out of that. It's just like something that I'm telling myself, and that's not really, I can evolve to this other person. Yeah. So it was just like a piece in the puzzle it was funny because there was this period where I was just like, that was probably when I was going through that, I was kind of like, come on, Garrett, come on, Garrett, come on, Garrett. And I felt like I was kind of pulling you a little bit.
You were.
And then I'm like, dude, I'm hitting all the check boxes. Like, where were you at? And then we shifted some things in our marriage, but then that's when you were like, okay, I think I'm going to
Listen, building my body like this has completely altered her perspective of me. But not because of just how my physically look, because it has, I feel like I'm physically, now the world sees what I've always been. Mm-hmm. It's like, do you not know who the I am and what I've been doing for 12 years? But half the time I walk in a room, people don't know until I start talking, or I have to have some video play before I walk in. Now with my physical body the way it is, it's immediate respect. Yeah. I'll walk in a room anywhere we go. We were sitting out like a few nights ago with my son and my daughter-in-law, and my son walks in. He's like, "Dad, you look like a drug lord now." I don't even know what to say.
Your son's
like
I
walk in, you're just like suited up like a drug lord, and it's wild because That's not what the energy in me has not changed. It's just now available in a way that it wasn't before.
Yeah, 100%.
I think every dude over 40 should get jacked.
I agree.
Every dude over 40 should get jacked.
In a country where who knows why, you know, we can debate that, but where testosterone levels are just sinking dramatically, and it's really scary. And they're pushing so much ideology into children's minds that I think that in sort of the assault on masculinity, I think me and Danielle talked about so many things that sort of shed a little bit of light, you know, through a perspective on this. But let me ask you, Garrett, like the assault on masculinity in and of itself. And I think that when I just look at you, you don't need to talk. You are exactly who they hate. You are the type of person they don't want near anything. Mm-hmm. And who's the they is the bigger question. But at the end of the day, that's why I think it's more important now than ever to have this exact conversation.
There's two things that happen, right? So one, you have women who, okay, back up. So you have this issue with men forgetting who the they are, what God built man to be.
Right.
This isn't like any religious story. This is a story before the Bible. This is God's story, which is God built man a certain way. God built men with masculine energy. That intensity keeps harmony and balance. Having men in power in their masculine creates a harmony to life. Flip the contrast. God creates Eve, helpmeet, to Adam. There's this feminine power that also cannot be, it's not masculine. It's deeply feminine, and it's as powerful. It's just different. Masculine without the feminine burns out. Feminine without the masculine burns out. They have to have each other. So you have women, though, guys that have become so weak, and there's such an initiative from feminism to beat men down, beat men down, beat men down, build women up. So women, like my wife, have gone down a path of becoming boss bitches, which is this energy been told to women, you are not enough. Being a feminine woman, you must also be a feminine producing woman who acts like a dude, who can command the boardroom, who can be all things. And it's wild because when women make money and they're married and they have children, they start asking themselves questions. Why do I need you? Dudes don't ask this question. Dudes make money and they're like, oh, I got to take care of my family. Women have been trained, what the do I need you for? I make money, I control the honey, and I make the children.
Right.
What am I in this for? So you have dudes so confused. And women don't want to plug into these dead dudes because they don't know what they're doing. These guys are terrified with no role models, what to do. So the women are like, I can't trust you. The reason God said lean into you and submit is if you were connected to him and you're not only not connected to God the Father, you're weak. Why would I follow you? So now women are trying to replace this lack of masculine energy by themselves. It was like talking to a couple of women you know and I know, both raising their children. And a couple of single women I know that are very powerful women trying to raise their sons. I was like, you don't have a penis.
Yeah.
You're never going to be able to raise these boys to be boys. Yeah. They're not going to be men by you. You're a woman. You have a vagina. What do you know about this? It's like me trying to tell my daughters how to be women. I don't know how to tell my daughters to be women. That's why she's here.
Yeah.
They don't need two moms. They need a dad and a mom. So it's a problem, but it's destroying women. Women are not meant to carry this much masculine energy all the time. Every powerful woman I know, and I'm sitting there with them, I'm like, I am man enough to hold space for you to be a woman. So just know, be honest. Are you tired of carrying the shield and the sword and everybody up every day? Because you're not meant and built to do this all the time. And it's the same response 100% of the time from 100% of the women I've met. Plus all the single ones over 45 who feel like there's no men they can trust, no men they can connect to, and who are they hooking up with? Purse boys who have nothing to offer except for just take care of their kids or offer up just convenience and companionship. And that's why they're cheating with dudes all the time because of this up game. So you're like, what is the answer? The answer is not tell the women to stop doing what they're doing. Women, it's not a problem if my wife has power in her masculine. It's a problem if I can't match and exceed it. Because if I can't match and exceed it, then we're in a struggle for power. If I can match and exceed it and I can hold space, she can actually trust. Hey, can this handle me?
Yeah.
How do I react? Well, I didn't react so well for a long time.
Right.
She would stab me like, bitch, what?
Yeah.
What did you just do? Oh, you're not my wife anymore. You're just a dude. Now what's going on?
We had a conversation about reactivity on the last one.
Oh, yeah, I'm really good at reactivity.
Sure. Well, the version of you that you are today, it seems to be working because she praised like the man that you've become. And she said is the man I always knew was in him. But one of the things I love Danielle talked about was that relationship, like you got to work it the same way you work at your business, the same way. You want to be good at anything, we just have this sort of this connection with, oh, it's not working, let's divorce, or that, you know, grass is greener. I think you use that phrase. That's so true, and people give up so easy. What I found, anytime I've thought the grass was greener in anything in life, it never is. It's never as valuable as the thing that I put so much time into in my heart. So I don't like to abandon ship on anything. You know, if you could speak to that, Garrett, just a little bit, because I think that relationships are failing so bad. She dug deep on this one.
Oh, dude, listen, I was an asshole. Like, there's no other way around it. Like, I was going off of a program and a script that I was taught as a man by who I don't know, but it seems to be a common script for all men, which is, I am to provide and protect. What does that mean?
Right.
Provide resource, protect my family from physical violence. Now, my own verbal violence of my family and my emotional violence and my mental violence of my own wife, well, nobody talked to us about that. So now I'm out here crushing in business and doing life, and in my world, dealing with aggressive men all day long. Men that swing at me. I've been tackled by them. We do aggressive shit all day. And then I come home to a woman that, if she even remotely responded with any masculine energy, would trigger my reactivity. Mm-hmm. It's not her fault. I didn't have any control. I didn't have any power. So then she got scared to even share with me, even though I'm like, share with me. And then, of course, she's not sharing. She's just smiling and being hot. And I'm like, see, everything's fine.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So then until it's not fine, and then when it's not fine, she shows up and says, hey, listen, just, you know, Caitlin O'Toole shared it this way. She's like, I'm on a one-way path to go back to God the Father, and you, my friend, are losing. You're not only not going that way, I'm going to go there without you, and we're not going to work out if you don't figure this shit out. And I'm like, what? And of course, I'm like, it has to be her fault.
Right.
This can't all be on me.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. This is 100% of the dudes, including a couple of very powerful men that I am hoping, I swear to God, I'm praying everything in my soul that some things happen, that they are able to turn some shit around.
Yeah.
Such close friends of ours.
Wow.
And
in their marriage?
Yes.
Wow.
But it's, dude, there's an epidemic happening with married people at the top, particularly in the personal development space. God's like tightening all these couples up, and half or more breaking. But it all comes back to the same. Dudes don't know how to not be reactive with their wives.
That's so true. No, you're right. We were talking about too. For me, I always want to fix things. And I'm like, if I think there's a problem, I go into that, you know, fix mode. Like there's something wrong, and that usually causes more resentment for whatever reason. I'm clueless to it. And also the other thing we talked about was how men have amnesia. Like literally, that was 10 minutes ago, and I already forgot it.
Yeah,
because I'm on to the next
problem. Why we
yeah, didn't we talk about that? I thought we're good.
We're like harboring it. We're like storing it.
Are you like this too, where you could be in an argument, you walk in the next room, and like, you know, you see Fox News on or whatever it is, you watch something for a minute, and your brain re-gears, and you go back in the kitchen and say, hey, honey, how are you doing? You know, it's like you're right back to like, we didn't even just have that fight.
Oh my God.
I think a lot of guys are like that.
And like a full-on blow up. Like I was thinking in Cancun.
Are we good?
And he's like yelling, and then like 10 minutes later we're at breakfast. He's like, oh, thanks for letting me get that out. And I'm like,
yeah.
Oh my God, I'm scarred. You just yelled at me for like 15 minutes for nothing.
You know what I like though is Danielle really opened up. I think it was, for people listening to this is just solid conversation. She opened up to like really how much power women actually have.
So much power.
Yeah. Well, you said something just recently. You were like, women don't understand their superpowers. So they're trying to be like, oh, I'm the boss. I'm this and that. I'm like, no, you're a woman. You don't understand. You're so powerful. You're equally as powerful.
No, you actually control everything.
Yeah. Well, like they think they're less powerful than men. And I'm like, when you understand your superpowers, you realize you are equally powerful. And if you can run with that, like you're not going to be all weird about it.
Here's the deal. A woman tries to play, how do I word this? A woman who tries to play me and Eric's man game will be demolished like a transgender trying to pretend.
Well, you wouldn't want to be with somebody like that.
Like a transgender trying to pretend they're a chick.
Okay.
It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Like, go the other direction. I was like a trans man. You're like, you can have vagina. You don't have a... Come and protest my events. We'll show you real men. You just took testosterone and grew a beard. Shut the f*** up.
Sure.
So there's like, it's fake. It doesn't work. Well, most women in business and in life and even in marriage, they think that their power is to meet the masculine energy of their husband. It's the complete opposite.
I agree.
If she's in her deep feminine, I am a slave at a certain level.
I was just going to say, I'm a slave.
She could just pull her shirt up and show me tits. I am neutralized.
Oh, God.
You're like, how? And she's done this before. Right in the middle of fights, just bam. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do to neutralize you like this at all.
Well,
it's like so much power.
I'll give you my example that I gave. It's a little less that. But I get it.
Graphically
you
detailed.
know, if I'm stressed out or if I'm like chewing on something and I'm in a battle of some sort, even if it's something that's really bad, like really bad. I mean, like I'm talking about like a lawsuit that happened that I'm not just so unfair. I'm fighting with it. There's nothing Jeanette can do to really help me, my wife. And I don't even know what I can do to help me in some of these moments, but just her putting her hand on my shoulder, my heart rate will slow down. She'll bring me to earth just without saying one word. She has the power to do that. Nobody else has the power of me like that. She has the power. Now, if she tries to solve the problem for me, I guess it goes both directions, or if she even speaks to it, it's not going to do much. But just her knowing to put a hand on me when I need a hand, game changer. Yeah. And a lot of women, again, the masculine sort of like their approach to everything it's just speaking a language we don't understand. We can't speak that you trying to be a man thing. It just doesn't work. And again, that's where the power exists in a woman.
And but that's the challenge, is that women are not being told that's a superpower.
Yeah.
So even in business, like the most powerful business women still act like dudes. And they think that that's the path to getting it done. And then they wonder why they're miserable and single. I've told these women too. I've sat with rooms of them and they're like, I don't understand why I can't get a good man. I was like, because you act like a dude. No powerful dude wants to go to a relationship and war with another dude. That's called being gay. So if I want to men, then I'll go get me a man. Then I'm gay. But I don't want to men. I'm not gay. I want to be with a woman, which means if you're going to show up this powerful in your masculine and not know how to submit into your feminine, these men will have nothing to do with you. There's a reason why 55-year-old men are hanging out with 28-year-old girls. Why? Because those girls just want to be light and have fun and dance and play and stay in their feminine. They're not trying to compete. These dudes don't want to come home. They fight all day long. They won't come home and compete with a woman. Be a woman. Don't be a aggressive man. And guess what? These men will kill for you.
I think that women. I was just going to say, like, powerful women. They don't want to. They think of like coming home and playing this feminine role as being submissive, and they think of submissiveness as a weakness.
Yep.
So they don't understand that. You got to flip the script. Like I'm not saying you can't be like a power producing woman, but I was telling him on the other show, I'm like, I had to make a conscious effort to like come home and like tap into that feminine, and realize it's not a weakness. If anything, it gets me what I want inside of my relationship.
It's a hack.
Yeah,
it's a total.
It's a hack.
I told you, I'm like, it's a superpower. I'm like, oh, more women should know about this.
No, they should. And it's not that hard. It really is. It's even simpler than love language. It's not complex at all. But men too could get a lot more out of it if they learn to sort of frame things more correctly themselves. We both. Yeah. There's easy work to do, but you coach some of the greatest CEOs in the world. You're the OG in this space. You're the type of guy that if someone is soft, they need to come meet you and hang out with you a little bit. And a lot of guys need to harden up. I'm such a promoter of you, Garrett, so for many different reasons. And I also you're the type of guy that speaks right to the heart of the ideology that I think is killing children in record numbers right now. So I'm such a pro Garrett fan. I'm just going to say right now. So if a man is doing something wrong and is soft and weak, he should really come into your world. Now, the big thing I would ask you is, so many people might first think of you as going towards business, sort of even physical health, fitness, but all these other domains. How important on the list of things is it to get your home in order, your house in order, especially with your wife? Is that one of the top priorities that you would coach in a man that is struggling?
So I'll tell you what, I have men come to this house, men that I can name, men I can't name, who that's the deal. You don't get to know who they are. They come to this place, they come here, and their lives are burning. These are big, powerful producers, big brands, big names, and we have started this year with the greatest hack of all time. It's taken me 12 years to figure this shit out. It's not going to fix your wife. It's not going to fix your married. It's not going to get trained and get jacked. I spent the time putting all my wisdom in how to deal with my wife. The challenge is my wisdom is flawed. As she laughs with validation that my wisdom is flawed.
That was a good laugh. Good timing.
I have strategically done a lot of stupid shit that was, I thought, a great plan. I was the problem. Wow. Surprise, surprise. So we get them into the Word, and then we show them how to extract God's wisdom, but in relationship to who they are now to solve their problems today. Then take that into work. Then wealth becomes the byproduct of this process. So I start every man here. Then from that place, now we'll start to build out on the 4 domains of life, of body, being, balance, and business. But we start with being now. We kind of started there, but it's...
Do you think purpose gets kind of found in this category, this first part right here?
There's only one purpose in a man's life until he gets into abundance across all 4 domains of life, is get whatever domain is in scarcity into abundance. And most men will never live God's purpose in this life ever. Because if you and I are jacked and our businesses are crushing, but our wives hate us, the only thing we're worried about is getting that woman into abundance.
Yeah,
the challenge is we get her into abundance, and then some sideways shit happens in business, and now we're over here. And we're like, all right, my marriage is good, my body is good, but now my business. So then I'm over here trying to get this up here, and then my body starts falling apart because I'm stressed out and I'm drinking too much and not eating my macros. I'm like, I'm fat again. I'm like, now I got to get my body back up. So most guys will live this juggling purpose their whole lives because they have no structure, no strategy, which is what we figured out at Warrior. How do you strategically align and get all of it into abundance? In that place, now God's purpose can actually be lived out by you and I.
Yeah.
Which is to learn to create from desire, not from need, not from scarcity, not from fear, which means we push in my marriage, not because I need to, because it is part of my eternal expansion, is to push for that. But I can't see that purpose until my life is in abundance. Once it's in abundance, we return to the Garden of Eden.
So good.
Now we're Adam and Eve walking with God in the garden, commanded and given dominion over the earth to create.
Yeah.
But if I'm second somewhere else, I can't. So,
You're right.
And most dudes will spend their whole lives just juggling this game and getting one area into scarcity and then getting it out, and they don't understand. They get burned out, exhausted, and then they buy into the lie of retirement.
Yeah, you know, I'm going to test that real quick. I told Danielle's story on her podcast, but I basically told a story of my life, and the one thing that was missing in my life when I had it all, when I thought I had it all, the one thing that was really missing was purpose. And I could even connect that even further. It was really a connection to God through action, not just talking about it. Right. But I didn't realize I was missing it until my grandma died. But it was interesting. It's like when I try to teach this to someone else, I can't really teach you purpose if you're failing here, here, and here. It just doesn't work. Yeah. You got to figure out. I called it something different. I like yours way better. But mine's like, if you're not winning, like if you're just not winning, if you can't figure out how to get what you want out of life, you can't figure out how to keep your own word, not lie to yourself, then you could try to have purpose all day, which I think is pushed in social media constantly now, like mission and purpose. Even in my shows, Man on a Mission, like it sounds great on paper, but the second you really look at it, if someone's financially stressed, the first thing that goes out the window is purpose. They'll eat it. They'll eat a dog in a heartbeat.
The purpose shifts. It doesn't go out the window. It returns back to the thing I said.
Right, exactly.
Which is the only purpose to get this area of my life.
This area, yeah, it's a simpler purpose, not purpose the way it's defined by the masses.
Is to make money and.
Well, if you look at people that go to purpose workshops, there's 2 groups of people: broke people and wealthy people.
No, are those a lot of your clients? Would you say?
We get most of our guys are We get 2 groups. We get the guys at the top, and then we get the guys in the middle who are climbing to the top. So that things are rumbling in the
What
middle.
about you personally? If someone's gonna buy your time personally for like the real one-on-one like time, is that you're right up in the only the high net worth type people, that avatar you just described?
You have to be willing to do shit, and you have to have done some shit.
Yep.
If you can do shit and you've done some shit, great. I mean, I have $1 million programs that we've been running for several years.
Right.
But I paused that for a year because I was focused on some other things. But that group, I've had guys come into my world and I fired them. Within 4 weeks, I'm like, reverse wire, bye-bye. And they're like, why? I was like, dude, I'm not a collectible. Did you think I was a trophy you could just purchase and put on your shelf and say, I coach with Garrett J. White? Go yourself, dude. If you're not going to do shit, I have no desire in taking your karmic debt on. Your karma is my karma now if I take you on in this relationship. When I sign a contract with a man, or I bring you into my mastermind, you come. That's why I do 2-hour interviews with everybody in my highest level program. People, that's a waste of time. I've done 120 hours of interviews in the last 6 weeks. Plus run all the rest of the shit I've done, plus been married, plus went to Greece, plus went and did a bunch of the shit with my kids, and plus went to the beach, and plus the kids the bouncy house and took care of the dogs and cleaned up dogs.
Yeah, more than most billionaires. And you're living way better.
Because of this one thing. If you're in my world, God sent you. And if God sent you, then we have a contract. And if we have a contract, that means I have to know you're ready to work on your side of it. Because I'm not going to save your ass. I'm not going to backpack you up the mountain. If you're ready to go, let's go. If you're not ready to go, that's fine. Come back another time. It's easy to wake people up. It's hard. Short-term attraction, easy. Long-term attraction, 20 years of marriage and 5 kids, hard. Keeping men awake, that's hard. Getting men to stay awake and connected to God and weaponize themselves independent in their relationship with God, nearly impossible. That's why the first time I met you at the gym,
Yep.
you're like, I got a presentation. I said, there's only one thing you need to do, Eric. Tell the truth.
Yeah.
And tell it from your soul.
Yeah, it's true.
Everybody else doesn't like it.
Yeah.
Because guess what? There's enough people dying to feel. Do we just want to feel as humans? We want to feel as divine beings. We want to feel our connection to God. And there's so much noise. If you can speak, and with what AI is doing, in 3 years, bro, it's going to level set the whole game.
Yeah.
The only thing we'll ever hear, it won't be the fancy clips on the Instagram.
Yeah, it's all because the
Yeah.
game's going to all be leveled up.
Yeah.
Be one thing. When Eric Rock speaks, does my soul shake? The only thing we'll find is what we feel. And God is doing this on purpose. He's going to take technology and level set the whole world. And the only thing that will matter is what we feel. The only thing we'll trust is what we'll feel, which is wild because we want to trust with what we see and what we hear, and we read headlines, and there's so much lying and propaganda and everywhere. You think it's bad now. Wait till everything's AI driven, and I can't tell the difference between your real video and other video outside of when the fact that I feel you.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a fake. I know Eric. That's not him. There's no soul there. That's a real one. How do I know? My soul. So if I'm deaf, dumb, and blind, I will not hear the parable of the sower. I'll just be another idiot that thought Jesus was a farmer. I thought Jesus was a carpenter. Wasn't he a carpenter? He's talking about farming. What the f*** is this all about?
So really what I hear you saying is AI is going to weed out the fake ones.
Yeah.
It's going to expose
it'll-
truth.
Yeah, it's good.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not afraid. I love it. I think it's fantastic.
I can't wait for me and Garrett's podcast because
I know.
I can
It's like,
tell
should I step back, guys?
we're going to jam hard. I'll wrap this up for you guys. Because Garrett's, you know what? He's larger than
Wasn't ready
life.
for it.
He is larger than life. You know what? At the end of the day, Garrett's good for society. And, I'll ask you this right now, right here too, is the hate that may come at you guys or anybody with a voice that has an opinion, it sort of comes. And that's one of the things that I think thick skin is so important because so many people try to touch it. They people please. They want everyone to be happy. You got to learn this quick. You're never going to be effective in life if you don't like rub people the wrong way. What are the types of people that you think historically throw the most mud at you?
Christians.
Yeah.
Born-again Christians, non-denominational Christians, Mormons, Catholics, any orthodoxical Christian are the biggest idiots that I deal with every day.
Right.
Here's why. Because they hide behind God. They are the perfect example of the people in the final days that would preach the name of Jesus and know nothing of Christ. So the biggest hate I get, which is what drives me nuts,
Right.
Christians, if they actually got their heads out of their asses and unified, it's over.
Yeah.
But they can't. And just like Genghis Khan and dealing with the Mongolian, all these idiots were warring with each other. And then Genghis Khan comes along and says, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to put us together. And here's how it's going to work. Join me or we'll kill you. That's how it worked. In the beginning, they weren't too fond on that idea. And they killed and took his wife and kids, and they raped and murdered and all these things. And he kept coming back with a larger group and a larger group until he took over all of Mongolia. And he unified them, and then they took over the world. If Christians could unify, which were warriors for Christ and all the stuff I'm doing with powerful men, because there is a very large group of men who do not subscribe to orthodoxical Christianity. They believe in God, they believe in Christ, they know God speaks to them, and they know that the current game of the church will not get it done. And this warring between different sects, I mean, if I hear of another non-denominational church trying to pretend like they are not a denomination, I swear to God, I'm going to punch myself in the face and them. You're a denomination. Stop it. What has to happen is we have to come above all churches to a conversation that is bigger, which is a conversation of Christ. But what does that mean? Because the church world has done such a good job of bastardizing fear, doubt, worry, all this obligation and guilt. Men are baptized in guilt and shame. And what are they doing? Exactly what Adam did. They run away from God, and then they can't hear his voice, and then we're done.
That's a good point. No, we'll jam because I think this is actually a phenomenal conversation to have, especially right now, in this time in history right now. And you're the perfect person, I think, to really dive into that too, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of hypocrisy that I see everywhere, and it's just alarming. And I can attest, I don't get nearly as much hate as you and the other big dogs that are in the world screaming, but I always sort of get it from one place too.
It's a church.
You know, it's just, you know.
It's funny, like strippers, drug dealers, like just normal people, like they're like, yeah, oh man, I kind of get that. It's all of the scripture quoting. I went to Bible college. Go f yourself, idiots. I'm like, if you show up to me one more time and quote me a scripture with a fat garage over your, I swear to God, you are undisciplined. Shut the f up. You mean nothing to me. If you do not bear fruit, do not witness to me.
Yeah.
Because you are witnessing dead words. You are bringing me stones. You're not bringing me bread. Shut the f up. Go find truth and then come back to me with fruit. Don't come at me with a basket of judgment and try to cover my light. Yeah. I'll burn you to the ground because I don't believe. I know. And we are leaving the land of believers. We don't need more Sundays with, oh, and we got a 1 and a 2 and a 7 and a 14 and 17 people saved today on Sunday. Yay, yay. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns. The f do these people do when shit gets spicy? Run. 90% of them don't contribute to the church. They eat donuts and look for free childcare. The same reason they send their kids to educational facilities here in California, because they're looking for daycare. The minute shit gets spicy, the whole church is going to run. This is true everywhere.
Yeah.
So then what do you do inside of this? We stop playing their game. If the church could have got it done, guess what would have happened? They'd have got it done. But they can't stop arguing with each other. And lead pastors can't stop the people in their congregation.
Yeah.
So what should we do? We just play a different game, bro. You and I are modern prophets. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering.
You know what kind of prophets we are? Legit. And let me tell you why.
Just
We're
real?
for-profit prophets. We're not showing up on Sunday, singing for 45 minutes, and then pretending like we're not begging for money.
Yeah.
I'm blatantly just saying, I am a for-profit prophet. God has called me to do what I do. Welcome to the new game. This launch and seed a new church? No. It's not going to work. Why? I just unplugged my microphone.
He's so passionate.
Picking it up on the side. We're picking it up on a side mic because I unplugged myself. We good now? All right. I'll finish this so we can actually do a show. I am a yell a bunch.
We're gonna do a show.
I'll just sneak out.
Yeah, Danielle, was he always like this?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, but he's not like this all the time. That'd be a lot. But
you just got me on topics that I think matter.
I was like, oh, you just opened a can of worms. So
I meant to save it for the one-on-one podcast because here's the truth. If anyone's new to Garrett, he's very passionate and he means what he says, and he walks it, he talks it, and I think he's simply calling out right now people that talk it but don't walk it, and that is a very important thing because we're watching right now, and I'll speak to this all day. We're watching something happen that we all don't like. If Christians are out there, they don't like what they see happening, but they're just mad at their TVs a lot. This is a person that I think would be the type of guy that you'd want as a next door neighbor when it hits the fan, because so many of people in history decided not to do anything when it was happening right in front of them. So
that's the biggest issue. We'll talk about that on our one.
Yeah, for sure.
That is the biggest.
You guys are amazing. Thank you for having me in your beautiful home.
That was fun.
This is awesome. Thank you so much. If you guys like the show, I'm going to end right here, and we're going to pick up with Garrett soon. But please share this. Danielle is an incredible human, and she's impacting a lot of lives. This show, if you don't share it, it does not get seen. And we are people that are censored, and so they hate us when we put out stuff. So please go share this. We appreciate our support. We love you. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.